and the last day is soon upon us. And that's what the Prophet said then 1,400 years ago. How close must it be now?
Now, to go into some of the signs, there are basically, the scholars have identified three types of signs. Signs that have already occurred, signs that have occurred and continue to intensify, and then signs that haven't occurred. The signs that have occurred and continue to intensify. One of them that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that one of the signs would be that intoxicants would be widely used. So you can see this happening and just intensifying from quite some time ago.
The Prophet said there will be an increase in sexual promiscuity, and I don't think anyone can deny that that is the state of the world today, with highly sexualized images, and even traditional societies that normally had a good traditional moral values. For example, like India, even in India, for example, promiscuity is becoming more and more common. The Prophet Muhammad mentioned that amongst the signs of the last day is that you would see the barefooted Bedouins compete with each other in building tall buildings. This is remarkable, because I invite anybody to look and go and visit Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain.
And when I was in the United Arab Emirates, I was once in the majlis of Sheikh Sultan Al-Qasimi, who's the ruler of Sharjah. And, you know, they're very kind of pompous majlis, you know, there's a lot of protocol and things. But there was this guy that came in literally in almost rags. And he came in dirty and he barefoot, comes walking in quite arrogantly, goes up to the ruler, shakes his hand, and then sits down. And I asked the person next to me, who's that? And he said it's his cousin, you know, but he's still like a Bedouin out in the, he lives out in the, and it was just, you know, there's a Bedouin guy, lives in a tent, but, you know, his cousin had become the ruler of the country.
Now you will find the people who only 60 years ago were barefooted Bedouins competing with each other in who can build the tallest building in the world. In fact, it's said there's going to be 6 of the tallest buildings in the world in Dubai.
This is a traditional interpretation that children would treat their parents like servants. They would order them around. They would tell them what to do. That there would be a loss of respect in that relationship. But I think probably the deepest interpretation is that there would be a radical disequilibrium in social structures. When you look at the relationship between a servant and a mistress, the relationship is like a mother and a daughter. The mother is to be obeyed, nurturing the daughter obeys the mother. When that is turned upside down, then you have a radical disruption in the social order.
Also, the Prophet mentioned that there would be the increase in the use of riba, which means usury, interest, credit cards, mortgages, things like that. In fact, to the extent that no one would be able to escape the dust of it. Everybody will be affected by it. And this is without doubt the truth of the world economy today. The whole world economy is affected and controlled by banks and the use of interest money. The one who's being killed doesn't know why he's being killed. The one who's killing doesn't know why he's doing the killing. I think this is describing the condition of some cities today, where kids are shooting people. The person has no idea why he was shot. In fact, people are being shot merely just to prove themselves or for any type of madness that you can imagine. Not even to mention the massacres of so many people that is taking place due to terrorism, whether it is the terrorism of countries or the terrorism of organizations or individuals. The knowledge in the sense of the books will be there, but the scholars, so that only ignorant people will remain. And people will ask them for religious verdicts, and they will give it, even though they are ignorant, and they will misguide themselves and misguide others. Anyone acquainted with the Muslim world today will be familiar with this. And the Prophet mentioned the speakers will be many and the scholars will be few. And this is what we can find exactly.
The headline is startling enough, the first increase in the suicide rate in a decade. Even more shocking is what's behind it, a rise in suicide by middle-aged white women, a group we think of as soccer moms, not suicide victims. With our current financial crisis, the tragedy could get worse. Suicide prevention counselors say calls are way up, with twice as many women calling now as 4 months ago.
And also the Prophet said the worst and the most ignorant people will become the leaders.
I was telling my brother the other day, there's a hadith that the end of time won't come until a man's shoe talks to him. Now when I first read that hadith, it just sounded so far-fetched to me. You know, I admit that. When I read it, I was thinking, why would anybody have a shoe that talked? So I read that years ago, and well, lo and behold, a couple months ago, I'm reading the New York Times, and there's an article, these shoes are made for talking. And the article was about Nike produced a shoe now that tells you in a digital voice, you can ask it, how far have you walked? And it'll tell you in a digital voice, you have walked 2.5 miles.
Think of these Nikes as talking shoes. Every step you take is monitored and recorded by this little iPod.
More news now for those who may be thinking of visiting Iraq and for archaeologists. And as the waters of the Euphrates River have receded, they've revealed ancient archaeological sites, some of which were unknown until now.
Saad says those aren't the only things they've discovered.
About
a year ago, when the waters started to recede, these artifacts began to show up. We began looking around the area, and we found clay jars and old bones, coins, and even some gold jewelry.
He says for now the looting is confined to mostly local people who don't know the value of what they've taken.
But these are some of the small signs concerning the events that will take place before the last day. And as we can see, these things that I have gone through almost without exception, they have come true in a way that is so clear and so obvious and so apparent.